How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the James Lab podcast. And today our special guest is Sara Payan from Planted with Sara Payan. So we met on 420. You know, I met some amazing people on 420. You and your husband are definitely part of that group. And it was a serendipitous day. My friend had passed away in the morning on 420. And, you know, I look back and everything, you know, we get these blessings in life. And I feel like that day was one of them. I was able to meet amazing people. And there was this amazing event that David Downs put on.
Yeah, and, David's great.
Yep. And to be part of that was great. And it was a lot of fun. I feel like the perfect amount of people. It wasn't overcrowded like a lot of events are, especially with cannabis. You never know. It could either be completely dead or completely packed. And you were filming your show there.
Yeah. We did Planted. We got a bunch of people sitting in, including you.
Yeah.
And we were talking about what 420 meant to us. And it was really nice. Actually, I just talked to somebody yesterday who said that they weren't able to make that event, but it made them feel like they were there. But there were so many great people, especially people who have done so much for the movement in the industry. And I mean, to be on that beautiful roof on a beautiful day, just being able to share some smokes and talk to people was wonderful.
The weather was perfect.
Yeah.
So now that the roles are reversed, what does 420 mean to you?
420 to me means, first of all, community, but also the patients, because I'm old school. I've, you know, like you, I've been doing this for a while, and I started in the 215 days, and it was a year out of chemo. So I really... For me, it's all about social justice, creating good policy to support the people, and a chance for us all to get together and really enjoy each other's company because we're all so busy and there's so many things going on. And especially with, you know, the way things have been in California the past few years, there's been a lot to worry about.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of joy because for me, I love the work that we do. But one of the biggest things is the people. I always joke that if you're in cannabis, you're part carny in a way. We're all a little weird, but it's like my kind of weird.
A little bit of weed carnies.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but we all are absolutely part of this. Well, it's part of a movement. You know, I think there's like the community and then there's the movement and there's this will and this amazing energy behind it. And it definitely has some of that.
Yeah. So for me, that's what it's all about. I mean, I worked in a dispensary for many years and I loved the excitement of people coming in. And that was when, you know, we were weighing out deli style. So we would get flowers that we didn't see any other time of the year and just seeing people's excitement and all the fun things that would happen. And you'd always have somebody who would bring in some crazy infused cake for the staff to have afterwards. And it was just kind of like we would work hard all day. We'd bring so much joy and then we'd get to enjoy everyone's company afterwards. And it's still, even though I no longer work in a dispensary, I still feel that way when I'm out with people during 420 because it's, you know, we just have so many things to be grateful for and so many good people to enjoy their company.
Yeah, there's just, I mean, every day there's so many things to be grateful for. We can be upset about stuff or we can be grateful. And I think a lot of times people have like life dysmorphia and they're like, my life sucks. But they're not really counting their blessings. And it's like, there's so many things to be grateful for. We're not at war right now. I mean, we're not fighting in wars.
Right.
We're all at war about other stuff. But as far as like the movement's at war, but we're not fighting for our lives necessarily.
Right.
I mean, I feel like I wake up and I fight for my life every day. So that's there was a Jerry Garcia thing. It's funny you were talking about cake, but he had a story and the reels have been coming in on Instagram about the time where he ate the cake and he ate the frosting because he's like, there's definitely acid in the cake, but I'm just going to take some of the frosting. And then there was these mafia guys and they were coming in when he started tripping and he's like, oh, these guys are going to kill me. And so he went on stage and then he was playing for his life. And so that really resonated with me. And so like lately I've been thinking, you know, I need to get up because he said he's been playing for his life ever since. And so I feel like I need to get up in the morning and I need to fight for my life every day. And, you know, I think that's a different kind of battle. but it's still like, if you can have that mindset, like we got to do the best we can every time we do it.
Yeah.
Whether we're doing podcasts or whether, it's in the room with plants, really putting all my energy into the stuff that I'm passionate about and the stuff that is going to help me survive and make me successful.
I can see that. I think for me, like every day is a gift. And even when things kind of go a little awry, I always look at it as, what does that mean? Like, what is that driving me towards that's going to create goodness? Because like before I got into cannabis, I worked in civil rights.
Yeah.
And before that, I was in corporate, and corporate felt really empty for me. I always joke that I'm an extremely greedy person. I like every moment to matter.
Nice.
So I got into civil rights and I loved it. But, one of the things was that I wasn't doing the direct work. I was an ops manager. So I kept the lights on so that my colleagues could do their good work.
Right.
And I was always searching for that meaning. Like, well, what is it? What is it that I need to do that fulfills me and also does good?
Right.
And then when I got sick, and it was like a bad country music song, because it seemed like everything was happening. And I used to think to myself, this is going to make sense someday.
Right.
And I found my heart's work through that. Because if I hadn't gotten sick, you and I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah. I mean, some of the most painful, terrible things are blessings in disguise, and they make us stronger people. They make us better people. They make us more, it's the sour and the sweet. You don't appreciate the sweet unless you've had the sour. And I love that. And I think that suffering is a good thing to a degree so that you can appreciate when you have good times.
Yeah, because it's got to stop eventually.
It's got to stop eventually. And, I'm old enough now that I realize that it's all going to work out in the end. Yeah. And even though we go through these things and they suck, there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And just grateful that we're having good days right now. And the weather's a little extreme, but, that's part of it.
Yeah, I know. I'm enjoying the sunshine, but it is. I mean, it's about how nimble can you be and how much can you be like water. And it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes it's going to suck. Yeah. But man, it sure does make the good times sweet.
We're going to have some good stories at the end. I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And 10 years from now, when we look back on this time, I'm wondering what we're going to be thinking. Yeah. What will have happened between then and now? And what will we have learned?
Yeah. Or not learned.
Yeah. Well, there's that too. There's that too.
Yeah. There's both sides of the coin for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I honestly feel if you were to look at 100 years in the future, 100 years in the past, they kind of talk about this a lot, but I feel like they'd say we are kind of crazy right now, but we're in this in-between place between technology. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 100 years? If we'll be around, I hope we're around. I think there's drive and there's the will of the people, and but people are like, well, what about these events that could happen, earthquakes, nuclear war. I think that we're going to survive, honestly. But I think if they were to look back at this time, people would say, man, this is crazy. Stuff that's going on, the stuff with politics, the stuff where cannabis is illegal, especially the cannabis being illegal and we're putting people in jail for a nonviolent crime. I think it's silly. And I think 100 years ago, maybe not 100 years ago, 150 years ago, they'd think it was extremely silly too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people going to jail for agriculture?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy when you think about it. But I mean, change doesn't come when we're comfortable.
Yeah. It has to get to a point where you're fed up with it.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, when we are talking about all the things that are going on now, it's like we're in this era of legalization. And people forget that there are a lot of people that are still in jail. I mean, for doing, the work that you and I do every day. And we have to get past that. It's still totally ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had Richard DeLisi on the show and Luke Scarmazzo that, together they did over 50 years in prison. Yeah. For the plant.
Yeah. I was actually just talking to, Robbie Bickett today. His family, the Bicketts and the Boones were the cornbread mafia. Yeah. And talking about how much time that, people in both families have done. And, they had his sister was murdered. And the man who murdered his sister got 25 years with the chance of parole. But his brother got 25 years mandatory sentence for growing a plant.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It really is. And I mean, these laws are slowly changing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not soon enough, but they are changing. I think, we see stuff like scheduling and we're afraid of it. I want descheduling.
Yeah, I'm team descheduled too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But we are progressing forward. I think in a lot of ways we're progressing forward. I mean, I think there's good and bad. We saw the influx of really bad cannabis in California with legalization initially, and now we're seeing it correct. And I'm seeing better and better stuff every day in the rec market.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, there's still the race to the bottom where if you don't have the best stuff, you might as well not do it. Is kind of how I feel.
I agree. I mean, if you don't have the best stuff and you're not doing it with heart, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because you can tell when it's not made with passion and heart too.
Well, and you're not going to compete with the big guys that have huge facilities that can produce stuff at scale and pay pennies on the dollar that can beat you on price. So
that's true.
Their exit price is much lower than yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then how do you compete? Well, you have to have a better product. You have to have a better brand, a better product. The brand has to back the product now. The marketing, all this stuff. Before it was like, the hype wins, and the hype still does win to a degree. But if you look at, these guys, Backpack Boys, these guys are putting great products in their back. SF Canada, these guys are putting amazing product out to the world. The only issue is the point from harvest to the consumer, getting it to the consumer fresh.
Yeah.
And I think people are talking about it now more and more, and refrigeration, getting it there in a short amount of time. The sooner you get a fresh product, the better it is.
Yeah.
I mean, now we have Terplock bags. They help with preservation and other things, but still fresh product is going to win any day.
I agree. But then you're also looking at a subset of people, like people who are more into connoisseurship, which I think is what we've directed a lot of our attention to.
Yeah.
But what about the normies? What about that whole swath of the market that's looking at cannabis as wellness? And they may enjoy a really good flower.
Sure.
But can they tell a really good flower from a mid? I don't know. And so what is it that draws them in then?
Sure.
I mean, we have like that LA Times article came out. Everybody that I know who's kind of curious or kind of on the fringe of the wellness are all like, now they're like, oh dear, oh my God, what's happening? Is it all bad? And it's like, well, no, it's not. I mean, we have work to do.
Right.
We have a lot of things to do for the controls around, lab testing and stuff like that. But
it's a nightmare out there. The whole lab testing, it's a nightmare. There's no consistency across the board, but that's changing slowly but surely. You're seeing 45% THC. That's pretty wild.
Do you think that's true, though? Do you really think it's 45%? Because I feel like somebody's...
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But that's what I'm saying is you're seeing these super high lab results, these COAs that are saying 45%.
Yeah.
But then you could send that same product to another lab that's more reputable maybe or more consistent. And you're going to see 35.
Yeah.
Maybe 37. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But these 40 plus, I don't know. I have a hard time believing.
I do too. And I also, just the whole thing, the whole race to the top with THC, I just think personally, and there are going to be people who disagree with me on this, but I think it's BS because it's like, I have had stuff that has been like 13% THC with a really interesting terpene profile that works wonderfully with my body. And I'm like, whoa, this feels much stronger than something that I've had that's been in like the mid to high 20s.
Yeah. And I would tend to agree. I think that it's an easy marker and it's an easy way for a dispensary to say, okay, well, we have this is how strong it is. But that's not accurate, not by any means. I think that terpenes dictate a lot. Flavorants, we're talking about flavorants now, thiols and flavorants and all these other factors come into play. And the difference of a strong narcotic strain versus a strong stimulant strain, so it's so individual too. You could have one thing that like someone who loves the stimulant stuff and then they smoke a strong narcotic indica, if you want to call it an indica, but like something strong and heavy, and then they don't feel right.
Right.
Or the opposite, somebody who's smoking these candy flavors and then, the gelatos and these, and then they go smoke some super silver haze. And they're like, my heart's beating out of my chest.
Yeah, right? Yeah, totally.
And so it's all subjective to the individual, and we all have such different body chemistries. It's been really hard to identify how they should. I mean, people are talking about like flavors, right? So we'll talk about different flavor profiles, lemon, orange, citrus, categorizing those together, and then they can categorize. But some of the stuff is just in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And so it makes it complicated.
It does. And I also find like, because, working with people's bodies in cannabis, like I have over 18,000 hours of working with human beings in cannabis. So I've seen had the baseline of how the majority of human beings respond. Yeah. I've seen people trip out on 30 to 1 CBD to THC. And I'm like, instead of being like, that can't be right, it's like I lean in, I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. What happened?
Totally.
I want to know. But there's also neurodivergence that comes into play.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with people who have like ADD, ADHD, and they're like, Durban poison or, island sweet skunk or, something that for me would be
they
like,
dab it.
Yeah. And they're like, that chills me out.
Yep.
I'm like cool, calm and clear. And then I go to the gym and I'm like, dang, but it's fascinating.
It's totally amazing. Body chemistry being so unique as it is. I have some friends that can eat 500 milligrams of THC and it doesn't do anything to them. Like literally, they could eat something that would make someone feel like they were going to die.
I would.
It doesn't. Yeah, I think most people, 500 milligrams will take you out.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, Kay, his wife from Trichome Technologies, his wife, she could eat an unlimited amount of THC.
They think that that's about liver function.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people like when they're looking at doing high amounts, and I'm just like, well, good luck. Like if that affects you, whether you believe in him or not, you're going to be holding on to the toilet, talking to Jesus.
Yeah.
But then there are those exceptions, and it's like, wow. So what do they need to help them? Like inhaling may be good for them. Sublinguals might be good for them.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to see how people react. Cause like I have a relatively high tolerance for inhaling cannabis. I have a really low tolerance for eating it.
Same. Yeah. I'm exactly the same. Like I do eat edibles from time to time.
Me too.
But I prefer low dose edibles now. Before we never measured dose. Like before 10 years ago, there wasn't like, oh, this is 10 or 20 or 30 milligrams. It's like, this is a brownie.
Yeah.
This is a cookie or whatever. We had brownies, cookies, Rice Krispie treats.
Irish moss drink. Do you remember that one?
No.
That was a crazy one. I got way too high on that and was having a call with my oncologist, actually an in-person meeting. And I was like, I got to go home. I can't have this conversation. And then I went home and bought a $300 espresso machine. Don't shop high on edibles.
Yeah. So Irish moss drink, is it like Bang, like with milk? Or
it had, it was like a non-dairy, like some sort of, I can't remember.
Jameson. No.
Yeah, right. It kind of felt like it, but I had this herb Irish moss, and it was I believe what I recall was that it was a gentleman from Jamaica who made it.
Wow.
And it was a creamy drink, but it was like some sort of plant milk. And I don't even know how many milligrams it was then, because like you said, we weren't really worried about that. I just chug-lugged the whole thing because I was nervous about having my first conversation about chemo. And then after that, I realized only half or a quarter. Like a quarter if you want to buzz, a half if you just really want to be nice and stoned and be home. Anything more than that is for your body, Sarah. You just, no, you can't do that. Yeah. And I don't do homemade edibles anymore. If somebody gives them to me, I'm always grateful. I'm always gracious, but I do not touch anything that I don't know the milligrams for, because 5 milligrams does it for me now, which, back in the day, I think especially during the 215 days, it was more than that. But I'm actually happy that it's just a little bit. And I use a little bit to sleep, and then I'm not groggy in the morning, and otherwise I smoke. Right.
Well, so I'm a huge fan of Delta 8. I'm going to get some hate for that, but I really like the effect of Delta 8. Mm-hmm. It's 20% the strength of like Delta 9 THC.
Yeah.
And for sleep, Delta 8 is my jam, like 50 milligrams of Delta 8 gummies or a tincture, whatever. That has me sleeping perfect. I wake up, I'm not groggy. I feel great. I feel super rested. I feel like it puts me in a really deep sleep. Whereas if I do Delta 9 and I was to do 10 milligrams of Delta 9, I'd probably not want to sleep, or I wouldn't get that good of sleep.
So that one's a little bit more cerebral for you then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get that, because like I know for myself, Delta 8 gives me like a nice fuzzy buzzy body feeling, and I'm not in my head. But then like my husband, it actually like Delta 8 messes with him with his body chemistry.
Wow.
And so it's like, your mileage may vary. Because I was like across the board, I was like, oh, Delta 8, it's nice. It's not cerebral. And for most of us, it isn't.
Yep.
But then you get those particular body chemistries in and all bets are off.
For sure. I like CBG too. CBG is another one. And it's like, CBG is just so mellow. It's like, it's a good alternative for ibuprofen. If people are interested in getting off ibuprofen, I think it's a great solution because I feel like it's also anti-inflammatory. I feel like it relaxes my muscles. I feel like it relaxes me from the inside when I smoke it. It's such a strange thing. Like, stuff that's higher in CBG. And I usually don't just do straight CBG. It's a blend because it's a full spectrum smoke of whatever. Flow Garden, he does hemp, and he has some of the heavy Z that he got seeds from me and sent me some flower, and it's high in CBG. And it was the most interesting thing because when you smoke it, I feel like you exhale and then it's one of those instant ones where all of a sudden you start feeling relaxed. And there's depth to that feeling too. It doesn't just hit you right at once. It kind of gradually makes you feel like you're settling into your couch. Even though you're not moving, you feel like you're kind of not like you're melting in like you're high, but like you're just getting relaxed. And I love that.
I like that. I have not smoked CBG, but I've had it like in tablets, and I have a tincture that I like that has a little bit of THC, some CBG and CBD.
Yeah.
And for me, because I have so much going on in my brain, it calms me so that I can focus and I can do things. And I was actually working with a family friend who had esophageal cancer, and he has been sober for over 40 years. And he was having problems with eating and nausea and also stress. And he wanted to see about non-euphoric ways to be able to use it because one of his greatest wishes was to die a sober man.
Wow.
And we used that. And he was so incredibly happy. He's like, it helped me eat. It helped calm me down. I didn't realize I was stressed. It helped with nausea. And I feel at peace because I've stayed with my wishes with not having any sort of, just staying sober. And that felt really good. And I find like with CBD, as much as I like that, I get forgetful on that one. It makes me a little spacey, even though it doesn't get you high.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My brain,
Yeah, totally. It's all subjective to the individual. And, we're so different because like CBD doesn't do that to me at all. I feel like CBD relaxes me. Even if I dab CBD, like my friend had this crazy CBD flower that they turned into extract, and it was like this crazy BHO.
Did it taste like cherries?
This one tasted like cherry cough syrup. And it was Medi Mike, and this is a while ago. My buddy from Washington. And when I dabbed it, it was like taking a heavy dose of some anti-inflammatories. Like that was the feeling I got from that. But it doesn't mess with my memory at all.
Huh.
It just made me really relaxed and chill. Kind of like CBG, but different. Like they're very similar, but different as far as how they affect my body. THCA is another one where you eat it and it doesn't really do anything, but it's really beneficial.
I like that. For me, if I ever grow, I just put it in my smoothies.
Nice.
Because I don't have a green thumb. I'm not growing big, beautiful buds.
So you're just making plant smoothies.
I do. I make plant smoothies with it. And I find that it like just makes me like very calm throughout the day, like having that THCA. It's so good.
It'd be interesting to do a comparison with different genetics that have different chemical profiles.
Yeah.
For plant smoothies. So I'm big into A and B testing. So we're like, okay, well, what does this do compared to this? And we do that with everything around here. We got the dosatron versus the Agritech irrigation system, and we have different lights. We have under canopy. We have light lifts. We're testing out everything, and I'm constantly like, how can I make this better? how can I make the genetics better?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I never even thought about till you just talked about it, but really testing somebody who's juicing the plants is like, if we give you leaves and you juice it, how does this affect you compared to this? Because we have like 100 different varieties that we're working on right now. So we could easily give you a little bag of leaves and you could compare it.
That would be cool. Well, and then you think about if you're making a smoothie, you're adding fruit to it. So you're getting other terpenes in there. And so how is that skewing it too?
Totally.
Like, I love getting nerdy with you.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And the whole thing is fun. It's like, I feel like almost like an explorer. Like we're able to be explorers. We're able to be scientists, even though I'm not a scientist. I'm able to do a lot of the scientific stuff.
Yeah.
And now we have these awesome tools. So like on the computer, like logging data, recording data, we're able to take over 50 data points on each cultivar that we have. So when we're popping seeds, that one individual plant, we log all these different points of information. And then as we breed stuff, we really get to know the plants, and it's fun and interesting. And, the thing is like you can change one thing in the life of the whole plant, and that could change the chemical profile of it. So.
Yeah. Well, and also like when you're looking at like terroir, if you're stressing something out, that's going to change things too.
For sure.
It's just so fascinating. I love that. When you're doing your pheno hunts, are you collecting all the data there? What are you doing with
all
that?
the data?
Yeah.
We just data mine.
That's so cool.
We log massive amounts of data on everything. And so we're constantly collecting data, whether it's indoors, greenhouse, outdoors, we're kind of separating that. But we breed for specific things. Like if we're breeding for indoor, we're testing it indoors.
Yeah.
But we're also testing stuff outdoors to see how it performs outdoors, to see if that's the direction we should go with something. And kind of when you grow it out one time, you kind of get an idea. But we grow from clone, not from seed. So it's a lot of fun. We get rid of that seed start. Typically, if we were doing for outdoor for people that are planting acres, we'd want to test it from seed. But a lot of times we're planting and testing to sell clones. So if we're going to be selling clones or genetics in clone form or tissue culture, we want to see how it performs after the first initial run. So it keeps things interesting. And there's so many different projects that we have going on all at the same time. So we really try to stay on top of everything.
Yeah, that's got to be so much fun. I mean, I always enjoy like testing out, like trying out different phenotypes of flowers and just as like a person who's partaking and just seeing what happens with certain things. Like even when I was, in the dispensary and we would get a flower that would come in several times and people would be like, oh, it looks different. Oh, the experience was different. Oh, it smells a little different. I was like, well, it's not made in a factory. It's nature.
Right.
So you're going to have variations. But what do you think as far as like how people are being able to kind of drill down and create some more consistency with plants?
Well, the thing is like the life of the plant, if in flower, is like roughly 70 days. And it can be affected, that one clone, if you're going from clone, or, if you're growing from seed, it's a little different. But if you're trying to get consistent, you're growing from clone and you have a clean clone that doesn't have any systemic bacteria, pests, or pathogens. The thing is nutrition and environment affect the outcome. So if we're talking about chemotype, right? So if we're looking at a chemotype and we're trying to get a specific profile, you want to have that consistent throughout the lifestyle, but you want to try to mimic exactly and record as much data so you can get the same results every time.
Yeah.
But one thing goes off, your humidity fluctuates. That could change it. The light intensity, that could change the chemical profile at the end. So the user could get a different experience. And that's the hard thing, as far as looking at it from a pharmaceutical perspective as smokable flower, because you can extract it and you can pull stuff out, fractional distillation and all these other methods that people are able to use. You can separate a lot of the cannabinoids and you can separate terpenes. You can do all these really cool things. And then you can have a consistent product because you can test it. But to get the flower consistent every time, that's very hard to do, extremely hard to do. And I mean, it needs to typically be grown indoors, because if you think about the light, the light cycle throughout the year changes in a greenhouse or an outdoor. You're looking at, if you're planting multiple times a year, you're going to get a different environment. And just like winemaking, the wine comes out different every year. If you're doing outdoor, your outdoor flower comes out a little bit different every year.
Right.
Even though it's the same genetics, in wine, they come back every year.
Well, then that kind of goes back to like, and so many people are like, oh, I'm so tired of talking about this. But when people will talk about indica versus sativa, and of course we know that that's not correct, and that, but getting into like the chemotypes, that's where we're really nailing it. Like, because you will see, or at least back in the day, you saw like maybe something that showed up on the more uplifting side of the menu, and then another batch would show up and something that was like more hybridy or a little bit more drowsy.
Sure.
And like really nailing it by getting into the chemotypes. But then my question is always just kind of like, how do we create that lexicon so that the public understands it? And it's not just those of us that are really passionate about what we do and we're all like, ooh, No,
I think this is a discussion that's happening. The ganjiers that are out there, they're having this discussion. They have their own ways of training and testing. And I think it's just a bigger conversation that we all need to keep constantly having and debate without fighting.
Yeah.
But discuss, because I think when you start getting into, indica and sativa, that was great for a long time. It was like something that people could relate to. You go in, I want the indica or I want the sativa.
Yep.
But really moving forward, I mean, that's what people did for years, right? And it's it's so much more complicated than that. I mean, there's so many more things that, the boxes that need to be checked, especially if if someone in a dispensary, how do you help people?
Right.
You can't do it off just indica sativa, right?
No, you can't. But even that in itself, like when you tell someone, these are just kind of placeholders to describe the spectrum of feel, like getting your average, I'm going to call your normies to even understand that. Like, right. I remember back in the day when I was just smoking whatever you got, like your guys showed up with a few, roaster bags of stuff and they'd be like, I've got sour diesel, I've got Granddaddy Purple, and I've got some headband. And you'd be like, well, which one should I get? And they'd be like, I don't know.
All of them.
Yeah.
That's my answer. All of them.
Exactly.
Especially now. I wish I could have all three of those right in front of me right now.
I know, right? But back then, I used to think when people would talk about indica and sativa, and it was always like some friend of mine who smoked a lot of weed and liked Frisbee golf. And I was like, whatever, you pretentious ass. And then after you understand, it is important to be able to talk about the fact that there are lots of different cultivars with lots of different feels. Yeah. But getting the public to understand just that was difficult. And now that they're hanging on to that, how do we rip that away from them and give them something that's more accurate?
You just do it slowly but surely. And I think over time, things change. It's one of those hard discussions, but it's like people saying strain instead of cultivar.
Yeah.
We've been saying strain and that's wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Strains are viruses.
Yeah. COVID.
Yep.
There's strains of COVID. But, and then mushrooms, you could say strains go along with mushrooms, fungus.
Mm-hmm.
But cultivar is the correct term, variety, cultivar, cross, not strand.
Yep.
It's an interesting conversation, but like we're getting away from that slowly but surely. People are saying cultivar. I hear it more and more.
That makes me so happy.
I'm okay with strain just because it's like the industry standard. And so to talk to people, I still have to call it strain because some people are just, it's over their head and it's okay. And I'm not trying to plant
the seed. I always go, cultivar, also known as, also referred to as a strain. But I always try to say cultivar first. So like get it in their head. I'm like, cultivar.
Yeah. Well, I just want people to feel that I don't feel like I'm better than them.
Right.
Like, or pretentious or whatever that is.
I think if you're friendly about it, they know.
For sure. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But yeah, the whole strand thing has got to go. Like that's been gone for a long time, hopefully. But I still, the old school guys, the guy's old school if he's saying strand.
Yeah, and I don't correct them
from the 90s.
They've been there way longer than I have. I'm gonna leave that be because I'm just a newbie. I'm
me too.
a mere kid.
I'm not gonna correct everybody that says strain or strand or whatever. It's just that's not my job.
Yeah, I feel that.
I'm out here trying to make the world a better place. I'm not trying to argue about stuff.
Just trying to cultivate conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Totally.
Exactly. So tell us about your show for our guests. I'm sure they're excited to watch your show.
Oh, well, I have been excited to do it. We are on our 5th year.
Yep.
So Planted with Sara Payan is on the Radio Misfits Network out of Chicago, but you can listen to it wherever.
Or listen to it, yes.
Yep. Listen to it wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And we've had a lot of amazing guests. And actually, today we just got in Forbes, which was really super exciting. And it was to highlight our new sponsorship with Jorma Kaukonen of Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna fame, has a CBD brand called Jorma's Choice. So they have naming rights for the podcast now. And we just added another new sponsor to our sponsor family, the National Association of Cannabis Businesses. So that's been super, super exciting. But we've had a lot of great guests. I was lucky enough to get an interview with the late, great David Crosby, one of the last interviews before he passed.
Really cool.
And Cros was the best.
Yeah.
And we had little Steven on. We've had Peter Coyote. We've had MSNBC's Michael Steele. We've had the Democratic firebrand Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett on the show, and our very own Barbara Lee.
Wow.
Also, we've got Rick Steves coming up, which we're super excited about. And of course, you know, a lot of our industry friends and family have been on it too.
Right.
And you're going to be on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Looking forward to that. So tell me about Peter Coyote, because I bet that was a really cool interview.
It was. And a lot of people say that it was one of their favorites. And the funny thing is that Peter is sober. But I always ask guests about their first cannabis experience. And his was crazy because like they went to Mexico and they got like a whole bunch of weed and they like hid it underground. They ended up like getting busted for it. And it was just, you know, he's, you know, being like the activist he was and all the crazy things that he did. He had a really, really good story. But then, you know, he's also a Buddhist monk now. And so now he's talking about the fact that he believes in the medicinal use of cannabis, but he feels like for, you know, euphoria and things like that, that in our world, we tend to do a lot of things to distract ourselves instead of grounding and being comfortable within our bodies. So he was like, you know, maybe instead of getting high, you meditate.
Yeah.
And so it was really fascinating because he's just a lovely human being and he's done so much. I mean, aside from being like a prolific actor, he's a musician and an author. And he actually narrated a documentary on medical cannabis several years back.
He's narrated so many documentaries.
Hasn't he, though? And he's got that voice.
Totally. It's totally recognizable. The second you hear it, you don't even need to watch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's it. So it was a delight. And, you know, he's just over in Sebastopol. So
nice.
And then right after that is when I got Crosby. And Crosby was like, oh, that Peter Coyote, he's a rascal. He's a ladies' man. And I was like, Cros.
Yeah, I bet that interview was amazing as well.
Yeah, it was. We went all over the place and we actually got into some really, really deep stuff because at that point in time, he was saying, you know, I probably have 3 to 5 more years to live, Sarah. And I have so much more to do. And his hands were starting to work better so that he was able to play the guitar again because he had stopped for a long time. So he was working on a new album. He was a perpetual student and he was always doing so much to lift younger artists up and just really excited about working with people and seeing kind of what they're into and what makes them tick. And we had a conversation about him being afraid of dying. And when I was going through my chemotherapy, I went through chemotherapy called FOLFOX5. My mom is a cancer researcher, so she actually did the clinical trials on the chemo that I took years later. And I ended up being very allergic to the platinum salts, the oxaliplatin that they gave me. And I almost died twice during it. But the first time it happened, I was in the chemo chair and my body was freaking out and I was going into anaphylaxis. And inside, I was very calm, even though on the outside it was very frantic. I was not in control of my body. And I was watching people rush around and I was thinking to myself, I was very calm and I was like, I'm dying. Who knew? I was like, and then it changed. I told him that story and I was like, and then it really like calmed me and gave me this whole other perspective about death where I always was afraid of it and I'm not anymore. And he said, you know, I hope I feel that way when it comes. So when he passed, because it was just months later, it just tore me up.
I bet.
But we had such an amazing conversation, and I actually had given him some questions that had come from our listeners. And one of them was, what should we tell kids about cannabis? And he's like, in typical Cross fashion, tell them the truth. Just tell them what's happening. And I was like, he was a delight, and I was really looking forward to spending more time with him. I was going to go to his garden in the summer when all of his plants were going, and I guess they had a bunch of cannabis that was in kind of like a Japanese garden.
Oh, wow.
And I was really excited to spend some time with him and Jan, but it wasn't to be. But I was really grateful for the time that I had with them. And then with little Steven from the E Street Band, that was a great conversation where he had tried cannabis when he was younger. And he was of the ilk that, it was very psychedelic for him. So he got what he needed out of it and he stopped using it. But he understood the medicinal value. So he has a CBD brand and he also has a high THC brand in Massachusetts. I think it may be in some other states as well. But the question that I asked him was, because, he was on The Sopranos, I asked him, I said, would Silvio use cannabis? And he just started to crack up. And he's like, no, but he'd sell it.
That's great. Classic.
Yeah. And then we just got into politics because, he's a very political guy. So we went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of the podcast that you do?
I love it all. I think with podcasts, it's one of those things where like I've heard people say, they're a lot of work. People get tired of doing them, but you have to love it to do it.
You have to. Absolutely.
And I love connecting with people and talking with them. And I love hearing back from people because, unlike with yours where we get to hang out here, I only have a few that have been in person. Everything is pretty much virtual. So wow. I really love the fact that it gets people to think because, my podcast not only appeals to our colleagues, but it's also people who may not be immersed in cannabis. And it's thinking about how cannabis is, and it's almost a macro-micro thing. Like, it's a call to critical thought. It's a call to think about how everybody's different. It's like when I teach my classes and I tell people, we may produce our own endogenous cannabinoids in our bodies. Not all of us tolerate phytocannabinoids. And guess what? That's okay. So if it doesn't work for you and it's not right for you, it doesn't necessarily mean that it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
We need to have these conversations and see the beauty in all of our differences, but also feel empowered to be catalysts for change. And that's what I love about it. I love being able to hear about people's experiences, learn from them, and to be able to share that with listeners it's a labor of love for me. And to be able to talk with people like you and to be able to, not only have you on my show, but to be able to come on yours and really like appreciate the fact that there are a lot of us doing this and we're all doing really interesting stuff. And I really enjoy that.
I feel like we're all just part of this bigger machine.
Yeah.
Not just us, but the whole world. We're all part of like this amazing machine. And, not even a machine, but this entity and this driving force and this consciousness.
Yeah.
And to be part of that, I'm just happy to be part of it.
Me too.
I think just super blessed. And to be able to get people's stories and to be able to be that guy who's part of the oral history and recording, because I feel like we're going to learn different in the future. The books are great and the way people have learned is great. But I think down the road, we have, instead of one person's perspective on it, now we have 100, 200, 300, 500, thousands of people's stories about the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
If we talk about alcohol and prohibition, we've heard stories from a handful of people, but it's not the same picture that we have now for cannabis.
It's true. And it's, I think really putting faces to those voices is super important.
Yeah.
One of the things when we get into conversations about policy, and I remember like when I worked in a dispensary and, after legalization, a lot of people's favorite products and brands and growers were gone. and the prices went way up. And especially people who were counting on this for true medicinal use were very upset. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of finger pointing saying, you know, the brands are greedy. You're greedy. Da 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 da. And it was like, okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about how the sausage is made.
Right.
The reason that everything's gotten really expensive and you're missing some of your favorite products and you're missing some of your favorite growers is because it's really hard to survive in this industry. And there's taxation all along the way. I may teach you what excise tax is.
Uncle Sam is your silent partner.
Exactly. And I was like, and if you don't like the way that availability is and prices and the structure of how you can legally acquire cannabis in your state, you have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
The regulators are making these decisions based on outdated views of who you are. So it's time to come out and say, I use cannabis, I contribute to society, I pay Uncle Sam, and a vote. Get active.
Right.
It matters more than you think.
Yeah, and these podcasts normalize the people that were previously outlaws, and you start looking at them and listening to their stories, and it's like all of a sudden you realize they're people too, and they're good people.
And sometimes things that are illegal aren't bad.
Yep. And sometimes things that are legal are terrible.
Yes.
Like McDonald's French fries.
Oh, but they're so good.
So good. It's so bad.
So bad.
So do you smoke in the morning, afternoon, evening, or all?
I do it in the evening. Now, when I used to smoke throughout the day.
Yeah.
But my work has changed. Like when I was working in the shops, I'd have like a little before I came in and I'd have some at lunch and then I'd have some after work.
Yeah.
And now I find that a little bit of THC is okay, but it can be a little distracting with my brain.
Yeah.
And if I have a lot to do because I'm like writing and doing other things, I still use cannabinoids during the day, but I'm doing CBG, CBD, and just a tiny bit of THC or THCV.
Yeah.
Because that's really great with my brain. And then I get stuff done because then I can look at my long list of stuff through the day and I'm like, oh, I know what to do with that. But too much THC and then I'm like, maybe I'll take a little break and get back to it later.
Maybe I'm just not going to do that work that I need to do.
Maybe not, you know?
Yeah, I mix it up. Every day is a different day.
Yeah.
It's like life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with me. Especially, it just depends on when I go to the gym in the morning. Sometimes I smoke before I go to the gym. Sometimes I don't. I usually hit a pen and get like a little hit. If I have a lot of cardio or it's something I really want to focus, cannabis really helps me focus when I exercise. Or if it's something I don't really want to do, but it's something I've done a lot.
Yeah.
That's in repetition. Cannabis is a great solution.
I know some people who say that red Congo is their thing that they do before they go to the gym.
I believe it. I really like red Congo. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's funny because Durban and red Congo are both African.
I love Durban.
Completely different. Like one makes you laugh like crazy. The other one gets you extremely high. The Durban just gets you higher than high.
Yep.
My experiences with it. I had one with Marlon where we just got way too high on a episode of the James Loud show before the James Loud podcast.
Uh-huh.
And the red Congo, we've done the same thing where we just laugh. It just makes me laugh. It puts me in a good mood. It makes me laugh, but it gets me extremely high as well. But
I find that red Congo is one of the most polarizing flowers. People either love it or they don't. And I would always tell people, smell it before you smoke it. Because people who like red Congo, and this is a broad generalization, but it seems like they can't get enough of the aroma. They're like, ooh, I love that. That's totally my thing. But that other people that are like, not so much. And then they smoke it. They're like, yeah. And I'm that person. Because for me, I appreciate red Congo and I love the bud structure, like those crunchy, fluffy buds.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work well with my body. And I don't like the aroma of it. But I always love watching people who love red Congo like get into it.
I love red Congo. And the thing is I smoke a lot of Skittles and gelato crosses because that's mostly what's going around with my friends and circle of people. And a lot of the stuff I'm breeding for is purple candy, but I also love a good gas strain.
Yeah.
I love OG. I love sour diesel. And then the super silver haze, the red Congos, the Durban. Like if I get them, I can't get enough of them while I have them and I'll like smoke, but I want to share them with everybody. And then my friends are like, I don't really like that. I'm like, okay. Some of my friends are like
own.
they're anti-sativa. They're anti.
Oh, you can't be afraid of sativas. There's one for everyone.
I think so, but I think there's also people that are like, that's not my jam.
Yeah.
I hate Tangy or whatever. I have a lot of friends that hate Tangy. They use the word hate with Tangy. And I think if you look at how many awards Tangy won, there's a reason they won those awards. I can't hate on Tangy. I don't hate Blue Dream.
Yeah.
I may not smoke Blue Dream a lot. I have a joint of Blue Dream right over there, actually.
Blue Dream I don't smoke it a lot, but it has a special place in my heart because
it's a functional strain.
It is. And that one got me through chemo. Every Friday, my nurse would come unhook me for my chemo. I'd be on it Wednesday through Friday. I'd smoke a little of that. I'd go to my local cafe. I'd have my huevos rancheros. It all was good. That was some good stuff.
Best game I ever bowled was on Blue Dream.
See?
It was above 200, and I'm not even a good bowler. I'm not even good.
Smoke Blue Dream and you'll hit the pins.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things. It's very functional. For me, it's a functional thing, and I don't mind the taste. I don't mind the flavor. It's got blue, like a really good Blue Dream is really good. Like it looks amazing. I've seen sticky, amazing, resinous blueberries. Like you open the bag up, and then some people are just like, I hate Blue Dream. And that's it's subjective, right? So everything's so subjective.
I used to be one of those people that used to think that they couldn't have the more uplifting flowers. I used to think, that's what gets me anxious. But then like the first time I had lamb's bread, I was like, oh.
Lamb's bread is so unique. Like the real lamb's bread, and like I've seen it called a couple different things over the years, right?
Same.
But every time it's got this muskiness to it. And
it's like almost Parmesan-y sort of cheese.
It's almost Parmesan-y. And the funny thing is like the last time I saw a cross actually from Sonny Chiba, he was at Harborside Farms at the time, and he was showing me this lamb's bread cross. And he's like, smell this. What do you smell? I'm like, lamb's bread. It was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, lamb's bread. He's like, it's the lamb's bread cross. And it's like, that the aroma of lamb's bread is so unique. It's got this musky, strange, savory kind of smell to it. And it's like, it's herbaceous and savory. And I really, really like that smell. And
I love the bud structure on that one too. It's really beautiful. I had this one favorite that I only had once and I never found it again. It was when I first started working in the shop, and it was a blueberry granddaddy purple. And it was so calming. Like the day fell off your shoulders.
Blueberry granddaddy purple.
Blueberry granddaddy purple. Only saw it once. And then later on, I found something that was almost as good. It was a Bubba Kush purple Urkel cross. Burkle.
I remember the Burkle. That's a long time ago. That was like 20 years ago.
No. It was
I saw it 20 years ago.
20 years ago?
There was the Burkle, yeah.
There was a guy who used to, back in the 215 days, used to sell it to the store. And it was really, it didn't look like those crazy pictures of purple buds that you see now where you're like, did you dye that? Or have you thrown that through a Photoshop filter? But it definitely, you saw the purple in there. And I think it was, the last time I saw that was maybe 7 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we had the Larry Bubba. That was another one. That was
I never had that.
Larry Bubba was amazing. All my friends that watch the show, they know all about the Larry Bubba. We used to love the Larry Bubba. Yeah. That was just another good one. I mean, there were so many different things.
Ingrid
was another great one.
I love
It's funny that you said that because I was just thinking about Ingrid like maybe 3 or 4 days ago. And I'm like, we haven't even talked about that in forever. And then you brought it up. That's great.
That was another kind of almost savory sort of flower.
Yeah. We had the Ogre and the Ingrid were going around the same time a long time ago. And
yeah. I can't do cheeses though. They make me crabby.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know why. I know so many people who love them. And I used to explain to people and they'd ask about it. I'm like, it's like video game weed, man. You smoke it, you sink it to the couch, play your games. But for me, I get just really like not wanting to do anything. I probably wasn't, so I stay away from that one.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me paranoid. It just makes me, like the couch lock doesn't do it for me.
How about Trainwreck? What does Trainwreck do for you?
Depends.
Or Jack?
I like Jack.
You like Jack?
And I know some people it really freaks them out, but
I like a good Jack. Hated by a lot of people, but they never got good Jack. Is my guess for the most part is they never really got to see the good Jack or some of the Jack crosses that we had.
I cleaned my house with Jack.
Yeah, that's perfect for that.
Yeah.
And then Trainwreck is one of those ones that was super, super strong. Real Trainwreck.
Yeah.
The Arcata train wreck. That was like super strong. Kick your ass.
I used to have this lady who came in, she was in her 80s, and that was when my first, like, when I started realizing that people from all walks of life smoke weed. And if you saw her, you'd never be thinking, oh, this woman like likes to smoke. She'd come in, she's just like this little lady, and she's like, I love me some rec. You got that reckin'? And it would crack me up. That was her jam every day, all day.
Love that. It's funny because I have a friend good lawyer friend of mine who I don't think he smokes anymore, but back 20 years ago, he would not even 20 years ago, this is like 2008, he only smoked OG.
Really?
So he'd be like, trade for some OG, and he'd be like, yeah, trade for OG. That's all I smoke. I'd have some other stuff. I'm like, it's kind of like OG. He's like, nah, don't
not
want
the
it.
Same.
Nah.
Everyone knows what they want. I can't. Straight up OG is hit or miss with me, but like when like Fire OG and Godfather OG were out, I used to like those. Yeah. You don't see those too much anymore.
Yeah, it depends. Like, so that really piney, where you get that, where it tastes like pine and citrus, where it's almost like fresh pine needles. I love that. It's like, and the thing is when it tastes that good down at the roach, that's when you know you got something special. It's like, because the effect from good OG too is like one of those ones where it just makes you feel good.
It does.
And it's like one of those, I wouldn't consider it a morning or an evening. It's one of those all the time sort of things. And I could smoke it any time of the day. Sour diesel.
I can't do sour diesel.
I love sour diesel.
That one I think is the one that I had when I was a kid that made me stop smoking for a while.
Couch lock.
No, panic.
Panic.
It totally freaked my brain out.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Where I know so many people who love it, but when people used to come in from New York and they would be like totally looking at the menu and like their eyes would get, well, no, I'd look at them and be like, you can get something besides sour diesel today. Yeah. And they would just start laughing.
Hilarious. Yeah. It's like, that was the big thing. Still is the big thing.
People, it's a very East Coast thing.
Piff is the new.
I don't know that.
Oh, I have some flour at home, but
what's Piff?
Piff is it's an NL5 or it's a Northern Lights. Yeah, I think it's an NL5 haze cross.
Okay.
And it's got this really unique aroma to it, and it's not like space rocket sativa.
Do you smell the NL5 in it?
You for sure smell the NL. It's definitely, it's unique. But it's like, there's a lot of crosses. The Fort Collins cough also has that same in there. But it's more of a mellow kind of buzz, and it's not super strong for it being an uplifting on the stimulant side of the palate or stimulant side of the effect. Mm-hmm. It's definitely kind of more mellow, but it tastes great. It's got this really great, and the thing is like the smoke is velvety. Mm-hmm. I like it when it's like that velvety kind of smoke. My buddy Josh grows it, and it's like one of those ones. Josh Freeman, he's been around a long time, and he's really good at growing all kinds of stuff. Living soil. He does soil always.
Oh, right on. Okay.
And, really, really good. But that piff he has, it's like it's amazing, and it has a lot of subtleties in it. So it's complex with subtleties. The smoke is good, and it's mellow.
Oh, see, that would be something like a lot of people I know who are like in their 50s, late 40s, 50s, early 60s. Their biggest complaint is, I can't smoke anything anymore. Everything is so strong. That sounds like that would be one that you could be like, you can actually have a couple puffs of this and enjoy it, not worry about freaking out.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe.
Maybe not.
I have.
I know you smoke the high octane.
Yeah, it's so funny because one of my buddies is like, "Could I just buy some leaves off you?" Because like I just missed the weed back in the day that was all leaves. And I'm like, I'll give you some leaves, dude. I get CBD leaves too. We got CBD leaves. Those will make you feel like right out of the 60s.
Totally. Well, when I was in the shop, there was a very famous comedian who came in, and I won't name names, but he said, "Shit y'all smoke now is too strong.
Yeah.
What do you got?" And so I sent him home with Cannatonic. I was like, look at like a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1. And he came back and he was like, that shit's my jam. I'm totally into that. That reminds me of what I used to smoke.
Cannatonic is awesome, actually.
Yeah, I love Cannatonic.
It's one of those, I feel like the flavors, if you get good Cannatonic, because there's seeds of it that have gone around. So there's all these different phenotypes. Mm-hmm. But Cannatonic, the real 1-to-1, the classic, is amazing. The effect of it is great. It's one of those ones where I feel like that's a great one for someone who doesn't want to get too high. Yeah. They just want to get the effect and they want to have a good time with their friends, but they don't want to be high. They get, because I have a lot of older friends that grew weed in the 90s. They're like burnouts now. They're like, I don't smoke weed anymore. But I feel like those guys could probably smoke some Cannatonic.
Oh yeah. And I like to mix it. I mean, I'm a big fan of making a salad.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're like, what does this taste like with this? Maybe if we cross them, it'll taste like that. It doesn't usually work like that, but like, it's still fun to do. And salads for effect, especially if you're doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when you're like aware of what you've got. Like I used to have like a little bag just full of like 1/2 of a bunch of different things. And I'd figure out like the time of day, like what was I going to have, or if I had like a headache, I'd have something that was like a white widow cross, be like, oh, what's it going to be? Let's look at these different things. And my friends would be like, why do you need, these are our friends who weren't in cannabis, why do you need so many different kinds in your little bag? I'm like, because I don't know how I'm going to feel.
Yeah.
I need to correlate this with how I feel.
Because everywhere I go, show and tell.
That's right. That's right.
We
sniff the bags.
So it's funny because we do the salad. So like somebody will come over. Shiloh came on the show. We mixed it up with, we did a salad with 2 strong, there was like turning it into Voltron. It was like
I love that.
From the cat into the full on Voltron. Like literally, it got us laughing and almost crying on the show. And but yeah, when I see friends, it's like, oh yeah, what do you got? Oh yeah, we should do a salad. I love those where you're like, somebody's got this, I got that. Let's see what happens when we roll them together.
Yeah, that's it. Or sometimes like just like throwing in some different hash with it too. I love doing that. The reason I don't smoke on podcasts is because I'll just stare at you.
Yeah.
I won't be much fun and you'll be like, why is she here?
What's going on here? Yeah.
Sarah, say something.
So we've had that happen. And I feel like what I've learned over the last 1.5 years, especially, is that the guest, if they don't want to smoke, it's not worth having them smoke, because we've had some episodes where they were uncomfortable or somebody wanted to smoke and I probably shouldn't have let them smoke so much. You spoke like an ounce before the episode. Like
and then you've got to edit.
Luckily, we have great editors.
Uh-huh.
So on that note, we've got your husband / producer / everything else coming on, Jeff Pearson from Further and from many other bands.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hey, James. How you doing, man?
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show as well.
Oh, my pleasure, man. It's nice to see you again.
So the big question of the day is, what's it like being a producer for the pod?
For your wife, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
My job is, she knows all the cannabis.
Am I
people.
easy to work with?
Oh, very easy. No, it's true. It's true. You are. She knows all the cannabis people, having been in it for so long, and the rock stars, the actors and stuff is more my job to get those people.
Really cool.
And you love politics, so you love.
I got a lot of Congress people for you too.
Yeah.
Got lots.
You
of
love
Congress
debating.
People. I do. I mean, I'm like most musicians, I'm a lefty, and so I got you one. Michael Steele.
Michael was
the head of the RNC. Of course, he hates Trump, so I guess he's kind of
it's funny.
In the middle somewhere.
Let's dive into talking about the Grateful Dead and Dead and Company, because we were at the same show, I believe, or you believe.
Yeah, I took Sarah. Sarah and I weren't together for the entire time I was in Further.
Yeah.
Mostly because I was gone 7 months every year, but so she had never experienced a show. So
that was my first Dead show.
We went to Dead and Company, and of course we, because I know everybody, we went backstage and we were hanging out and saw my buddy Bill Walton and his beautiful wife Lori. Incredible people.
Super friendly always.
So friendly. And
he makes John Mayer look short.
He makes everybody look short.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, my favorite Bill story is one of my, my main band is called Box Set, but I had another kind of band for a while just a big rock band called The Fall Risk. And we got asked to do the national anthem at a Warrior Rockets game one night. And so I go, and this is when Bill's son Luke was a bench coach for the Warriors. And so Bill was there. And, we knew each other because he was at every further show practically. And I jokingly said, "Hey, Bill, why don't you sit in on the anthem tonight?" And he's like, I'll do it.
Wow.
So I went to the Warriors guys and I'm like, "Hey, what if we get Walton up on the anthem tonight?" And they're all like, "Well, can he sing?" And I said, "It doesn't matter. There's no mic stand that's 7 feet tall.
That's great.
The mic will be in front of me and the other guys, and he'll be in the back, And they said, "Great, let's do it." So we did it, and it ended up on the lead-in for Sports Center that night.
Really cool.
So it was just a kick in the butt.
That's amazing.
He's a great guy. Or was a great guy. God rest his soul.
Yeah. I mean, that show at Shoreline, I had been starving myself because I had bet my friend $1,000 that I could lose more weight than him in a month. And it was like on maybe the 12th or 13th at Shoreline 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the weigh-in was on the 15th. So I was like, I went to the gym in the morning. I wasn't eating carbs. I was eating like chicken and asparagus. And so I was I wasn't fasted, but I was eating very low calorie and drinking lots of water.
Right.
And I popped a little microdose and it gave me the macrodose effect. And Bill's arms, if you've ever been to a show, you see Bill's arms
Straight
waving
up.
back and forth. And the trails on Bill's arms were pretty amazing.
I would imagine they were.
And it was a great set.
Yeah,
that was a great set, Dead and Company, all the Bay Area shows have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Fun band.
Very fun band.
Yeah.
Great group of guys to work with.
I bet.
Incredible guys. We had a great little 6-year run with Further. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
Got
really
to do
cool.
a lot of stuff. A lot of things I can't talk about.
I bet. What was the best? What was the one? If you think of the best experience that you had?
I think for me, it was probably first time at Madison Square Garden. I had dreamed about playing there since I was a kid. When I used to hold the tennis racket, pretend it was a guitar when I was like 8 years old.
Amazing.
And my group box set, we played a lot of big places, but usually as the opener. So to finally get there and be the headlining act at Madison Square Garden was pretty special. So that's one I always remember. And then, like someplace like Radio City Music Hall was obviously very exciting. First time at Red Rocks was great. Some of the iconic places. And then, of course, I'm a Bay Area guy. So, playing Shoreline and the Coliseum and the Berkeley Greek, those were all special because I had played a lot of them before, but not as the headliner.
Right.
So it was pretty cool.
I've been to all those venues. That must be amazing.
Of course. Yeah. We're all from here.
Yeah.
So we know how special they are. And
and then the Shoreline has that special connection with the dead. And when you're backstage, you get to see some of the stuff that's.
Well, it was built for the Grateful Dead. Yeah. Shoreline was literally built for the Grateful Dead. If you're up in the air above it, it's a Steely.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know that.
Yeah. If you're above it, if you ever fly over it, look down, it's a Steal Your Face.
Yeah.
It's shaped like that on purpose by Bill Graham.
Pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing stuff. Yeah. I was blessed. But, Bob used to come see my band Box Set, which is going into our 34th year. This is our 34th year.
Yeah.
Bob used to come see Box Set all the time.
Yeah.
In the 90s. So when they formed Further, I got the call.
Yeah. I feel like we all have our place on this earth, and
Absolutely.
It's amazing when you find what you're meant to do.
Absolutely.
Whether it's music or podcasts and growing. I love being a part of this bigger thing, this collective consciousness that we're all a part of. And it makes me smile, and to meet other people that have found what they're passionate about and able to put the years in and the time in and have great stories.
Yeah, I was going to say, almost every musician I've ever met and known appreciates cannabis people.
Yeah. I know a lot of musicians
I know
that do.
The Further bus, it was very,
very,
it was a good thing for us to have.
Yeah.
When we got together, people said it made perfect sense.
Well, that's what I used to say. There was so much weed around further in the Grateful Dead when I was playing with them. And I thought that was a lot of weed until I met Sarah.
Wow.
And then there was even more.
Yeah.
Because, everybody sends her everything to check out. Try this. I'm coming out with this. What do you think? And they want to get her approval.
Totally.
It got to the point where every time we take an Uber, I tip them with some kind of cannabis product to get it out of my house.
Nice. Nice. That's always I feel like a lot of times that's a really great tip.
Yeah.
For especially Uber guys.
Yeah.
A lot of stoners, especially in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people either smoke or have friends that smoke.
Yeah.
And even if they don't smoke, but they take it, it's probably going to go into some good hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People don't throw weed away.
No.
So that's the beautiful thing about it.
I always ask the driver, I said, are you into cannabis? And inevitably, 90% of the time, they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I get a nice bag of cookies. But working as an educator and a consultant, I get a lot of people who want to get feedback on products.
Yeah.
So, I love checking stuff out, but there's only amazingly
You can only consume so much.
Yeah.
Right?
You never think that. It's a good problem to have, which I know you have too.
yeah, there's just two of us at the house, so we just give some
That's
away.
it.
I'm
Share
sure
the
you
love.
do too.
Yeah. I mean, so like with testing out flower, I've been in the habit of lighting up half joints, like smoking a half a joint, or not rolling a half joint, rolling a full joint, but I want to know how it burns past the initial part, because you really got to if it tastes good in the beginning, that's great. But halfway down, if it still tastes good, then you're onto something.
Well, I will say I've seen your joints and they're big.
Yeah. I like smoking big joints, and I feel like that's the best way to determine if it tastes good or not.
Yeah. So a half a joint for you is probably a full joint for most
people.
Yeah. When on 420, that joint you had, I was like, okay.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, we got some more for you today.
James knows what's going on.
Yeah, I love the big joints.
Like fatter than my thumb.
Yeah, the party joints.
Yeah,
but I think that's how I like to consume.
Yeah, sure.
Joints, and how I really enjoy the flavor, and I use thin papers.
Yeah, smart.
And I want them to draw a good amount of smoke.
Yeah,
and I'm not a huge hash hole guy. A lot of people are into the hash holes now, and it's cool.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'll smoke them every once in a while if somebody has them. I'm not. I don't go out of my way to roll them or to buy them, but I get gifted some amazing stuff. But yeah, I just love real good quality flower. It just excites me.
Yeah, it does me too.
Yeah.
Even though, Sarah was just talking about the famous comedian that liked catatonic.
Yeah,
I'm kind of that guy too.
Yeah.
Because, when I was smoking, everything in California was outdoor. It had a high amount of CBD in it. So it balanced everything out. And so the stuff today kind of makes me a little shaky. So
yeah,
I'm kind of a catatonic guy too. I only smoke what she tells me I can.
Yeah.
And there's a grower up north, Tina Gordon, from Moonmaid Farms, who is just everything and it's outdoor, it's sun grown, and everything she does is really good for my body. I have found so far.
Have you tried Huckleberry Hill Farms?
We're just getting ready to go visit them, aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting ready
to go visit Johnny.
Yeah.
She just didn't
and
you
stop
have
at
him on the
Ridgeline.
podcast?
Yeah, stop at Ridgeline on the way up there. Go talk to. Yeah, those guys have some special stuff.
I saw the hat over there. I was looking at that.
Yeah.
The Huckleberry Hill Farms. That Whitethorn Rose is something special.
Okay.
And after you smoke that, I should have some Blue 13 done, and then you can smoke and compare and contrast.
I would love
because
to.
I feel like the effect, it's feel-good weed. It makes you feel good. You can smoke it in the morning. You can smoke it at night. You can smoke it when you're depressed. You can smoke it when you're happy, and it just makes you feel good.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like we need more weed like that. We need to go back into breeding for effect a lot more. I think that we've gone into flavor, and I'm to blame for that too, where I've been breeding for flavor, heavy on flavor, and then kind of neglecting the effect part, because I feel like the effect is tied in heavily with the flavors that I like.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I need to go back to breeding for effect. And especially that feel good stuff where it's like, it makes me feel good. And so if I can breed it and I can smoke it, that's what I want to smoke.
Right. Yeah.
It's got to taste good too, of course. Still got to check the boxes, but that feel good effect is something that we all need.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the medicine. That's the real, that's the magic. The magic is found there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do still enjoy that dry hit before you light it up, though. Really like
Absolutely.
experiencing that.
I might dry hit them like a couple hours before, and then like, I might dry hit them 20 or 30 times sometimes. Or sometimes if I don't want to smoke in the car on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as strains you guys like to smoke together,
Mm-hmm.
what is something that works for both you guys?
Probably Canatonic, just because
Or no, you know what? Cherry Moon.
Cherry Moon, but yeah, Tina Gordon again.
Yeah.
Going back to
Cherry Moon. Nice.
Moon Made
Cherry
Farms.
Moon Made Farms.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a CBD strain?
No, it isn't, but it's like it's moderate THC with a really nice, like, I feel like it just has a really balanced profile to it. For me,
Nice.
it's like he has a couple puffs, he's totally happy. I can smoke it and I feel something because I tend to like things that are a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
lightweight of the two of us for sure.
Yeah.
He's the example.
Twice as big, but
Yeah.
a lightweight.
Well, when I teach my classes and people are asking about dosage, and I'm like, okay, so body mass has nothing to do with it. It's body chemistry. I'm like, my husband, who is almost twice my size, is my 2-hit wonder.
Yeah.
And I have a high tolerance, and it has to do with what's going on with your body.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. Alcohol is
Yeah.
the same way. I know some women that can drink men under the table.
Oh, back in the day, I've always had female friends, but I've always had a lot of guy friends.
Yeah.
And so, you keep up.
Yeah.
And I'm a bourbon drinker or wine if I drink. I don't drink that much anymore.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I could hold my own for sure.
Yeah, it's either bourbon or wine.
Yeah, bourbon or wine.
We have everything.
Yeah, we have everything to accommodate our guests, but we're
Yeah.
bourbon and wine.
I got a whole bar at the house and I'm not drinking right now. It's so
How does that feel?
I don't know. I look down there and I'm like, it looks interesting, but doesn't interest me right now. And I like entertaining though. I'm always one of those people. I love having my friends over for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like making cocktails and food and rolling joints and doing dabs. And I got a set of hot knives. I'm waiting to try on some friends. So I just found them. I'm like, yeah, we're going to try these on somebody. Someone's coming over. We're doing some hot knife hits. Maybe my friend Rue. We'll see.
Are you the cook in the family?
I am. But
He said he was a chef. Right?
I know. I remember that.
I would
But
say that
just because
she
you're a
makes-
chef doesn't mean you cook at
Well,
home.
that's
I'm
true.
really picky about what I eat.
Yeah.
So I eat mostly protein. I'm on a low carb, high fat, high protein diet.
Uh-huh.
And I get away with not eating very much. But and like smoking weed will definitely make me more hungry.
Sure.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I have friends over, like I have all kinds of cool stuff stuff from the past that people haven't seen in 20 years. Like before the volcano, there was a vaporizer that it would have a glass piece with a hose on it, and you would have an element, and you would blow hot air through the element, and that's how we vaporized.
Oh, was it that little wooden box?
Little wooden box, exactly.
My roommate broke mine. I was really pissed at him.
Yeah. Well, and like if you break it now, there's no the company doesn't exist anymore. I don't know how to get the replacement pieces. You'd have to have someone hand blow you the replacement pieces. But there was the big Buddha vaporizer, and there was a whole bunch of cool stuff. And I have all kinds of nostalgia from 20 years ago, 25 years ago, from when I was a kid.
I love that.
The only thing I haven't done in a long time was use a magnifying glass to smoke.
Right.
But we did that back in the day, and I'm probably going to do that again this weekend.
Or a
We'll
toilet
see.
paper roll or an apple.
Oh, yeah.
In the dorms, we used to do that out of desperation sometimes.
Yeah. There's always the bong MacGyver. He's got to get creative. We did some wild things for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I've done that at cannabis conferences where they don't allow weed in the state. Get an apple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instabong.
Exactly.
Did you guys put fabric softener in the cardboard tubes and like blow your hits into that when you were younger?
In the dorms.
In the dorms, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you put some bounce in there. You won't
to
get
kill the
caught.
smell?
You
Kill
won't
the
get
smell, you
caught.
blow it right through that.
No,
Yeah.
we just used to stick the towels under the door.
Oh,
and
we did that
open the
too.
window. My dorm was on the 14th floor at San Francisco State. So we were up high and we just opened the window.
And blew
It
out.
was right by the ocean, so there's always a breeze. So we
Yeah.
just take it away.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't think anybody cared at San Francisco State.
Probably not. At Northern Michigan University,
Yeah, they care
did.
there.
You'd go to jail for resin in your pipe back.
Well,
back
it's
then
funny
in
because
my
now
state.
Northern Michigan University wants you to come and be an adjunct professor and teach a cannabis class.
They're going to be starting a bachelor's program in
Yeah.
cannabis.
Really
Amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
All these colleges need to start. They need to educate people on how to work in the industry. I mean, I think all these things are a great idea, but going back to my experience with culinary school, I feel like a lot of people went to culinary school, they paid $100,000 for school,
Yeah.
and then ended up working at Starbucks because you don't get the industry experience. I feel like cannabis is the same way. If you want to work in the industry, now, if you want to be a breeder or you want to, I think cannabis is amazing. And if you were to go to college for plant science, that would be great. But as far as learning the basic stuff, you should actually just go get a job at a farm, indoor, outdoor, greenhouse, whatever it is. I think that's the best way to learn. So if you guys want a job in the industry, you want to be professionals, the best thing to do, besides growing in your closet at home, which is great, but go out and get a job in the industry, suck it up for 5 years. You're not going to make a lot of money, and that's okay, but you're going to learn a lot. And sometimes that's, whether you're a musician or whatever it is, doing it is how you're going to learn how to do it.
Absolutely. We, musician, we didn't make any money the first 5 or 6 years either.
Yeah. But that it's interesting that you're talking about culinary school and then this, because that was one of the things. I was going to go to culinary school for pastry, and I was doing a lot of reading, and there was that big argument about, do you just work under someone or do you go to school? And I had applied to school. And then when I saw the loan that I was going to take out and that I was going to be lucky if I made $13 an hour in a kitchen when I got done, I was like, okay, like, how do you get people to get excited about actually doing the time in the industry, just working their way up? But also when we're looking at education, some of these programs that are out, and I know people who have gone, I ask them, I say, are you doing it for the institutionalization, or are you actually learning something from it? And if they've been in the industry, it's the institutionalization. And then the second question I always ask is, are your professors people who actually have practical experience? Or are these tenured professors with advanced degrees that are teaching the curriculum that's given to them? And it's usually the second as well. And so I think if we are going to be having these programs, we need to make it attractive for people in the industry to work in them. But more than that, there has to be critical thought in the educational institution that it's not necessarily going to be a person with a master's degree that's going to be teaching this class, but they're going to have the knowledge and the background to help create the curriculum to actually put people out there that know what they're doing and can get good jobs.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if I'm learning if I want to go to school for breeding, I want to know from somebody who actually does breed, how to do it. What's their approach? Because you can, the plant science stuff, I think the basics, it's great to go to school for foundational stuff.
Totally.
But the fundamentals, right? Like to learn the fundamentals, I think that's important. But when it comes down to cannabis and learning how to breed, everyone has their own way of doing it. And learning somebody's style, learning their approach, because we all have different approaches, that helps you find your own way eventually. And that's what you really want to do, is find your own way to that. Now, you can do that by practicing at home, but doing that at scale is so much different than breeding in a tent, or breeding under 4 lights. When you're breeding under 60 lights, doing pheno hunting under 60 lights as opposed to 4, that's a whole different story, and you're able to explore a lot more, or doing a whole field. And usually you're not going to do that on your own dime. It's better to go learn on somebody else's dime.
Correct.
Go lose not lose some money, but not make a lot of money. Go work in Humboldt on a farm.
Well, and you may find that as much as you thought that that's what you wanted to do, there's something else in the cannabis sphere that you weren't even turned on to before that you actually want to do instead.
Right.
Well, you created the curriculum for City College, San Francisco.
The first curriculum. Yeah. And it was a very interesting time because it was very political to be able to do that. And the faculty were not as open to it. So I was interesting because I wasn't a faculty that was an employee. And so to kind of see some of the politics, but be removed from it was a blessing. But I was grateful to do it. I did 3 3-hour classes. It was a session. It was a whole session. And then when the next group of people came in and did the classes, I think it was easier for them to be able to get through some of the politics
Right.
and really like be able to have the freedom to put in some really good curriculum as well.
Nice.
It's you always got to start somewhere, right?
For sure. So if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, and we're going to do this one at a time,
Okay.
Okay.
what would that one piece of advice be?
Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. There were so many times as a struggling musician in the early days where I thought, and you're not both my parents, but one of my parents was always kind of breathing down my neck, join the apprenticeship, have something to fall back on. And if I would have done that, I don't think I would have had a career in music. So just
Don't give
don't
up.
lose hope.
Yeah.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah. Mine would be just staying true to yourself. Especially when you're younger, it's like you doubt things and you get really influenced by. There are good influences, of course, that help shape our personalities. But I think as human beings, we're given this laundry list of things that we're supposed to do and be, and it promises us this successful, happy life. And not everybody has the same path.
Right.
So be true to yourself, stick to your gut.
Excellent. If people want to get a hold of you,
Yes.
where can they go?
We are on all social media. So on Facebook, we are Planted with Sarah Payan. We are Planted with Sarah on X and Instagram. You can also find us on LinkedIn. Websites are www.plantedwithsarah.com or www.sarahpayan.com for education, consulting, and all the stuff that I write.
Awesome.
All of that, because I produce her show. And then if you're interested in box set, boxsetband.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really look forward to coming on your show.
I'm looking forward to that too.
Excellent.
Yeah. And thank you for having me. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
For sure.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, you guys are a lot of fun. I'm so glad we did this, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Same.